The city had a cathedral, and it was not a church. It was the pro-bending arena, a bowl of steel and light and roaring noise where Republic City went to forget its arguments. 3 to a team, 3 zones to a ring, 6 minutes to push another trio of athletes off a platform and into the water below. It was simple enough for a child to understand and complex enough for old men to argue about for hours. And on the nights the lights came on, the whole city leaned in. The arena was where the city's anger went to be turned into sport, and like every pressure valve, it only worked until it didn't. Korra found it the way drowning people find ropes. She had been failing at airbending for weeks, failing in front of witnesses, failing in the ways that get recorded and repeated and turned into headlines. And then she was standing at the edge of a pro-bending ring, watching 2 firebenders and an earthbender move through a scrimmage, and something in her chest unclenched for the first time since the South. Because this, she understood. This was combat with rules. This was footing and timing and reading an opponent's weight. This was a language her body already spoke. The team was called the Fire Ferrets, and they were, in the way of all beloved disasters, 1 bad week from ceasing to exist. The firebender who anchored them, Mako, carried the team and his younger brother the way he carried everything, which was to say with his jaw set and his shoulders tight and no visible joy whatsoever. He was a young man living on stress and caffeine and the stubborn refusal to let anything he loved collapse on his watch. His brother Bolin, the earthbender, was his exact opposite, a creature of enormous appetite and enormous heart who treated every stranger as a friend who simply hadn't been introduced yet. Between them they had talent, debt, and no funding, which is to say, they had a future exactly as long as their next loss. Korra looked at them and saw herself, though she could not have said so. She saw people performing competence while everything shook underneath. And when the ferrets discovered that the waterbender girl from the south could bend 3 elements and fight like a cornered badger turtle, the question stopped being whether she could help them. The question became whether she would. She would. She joined the team the way she did everything all at once, and for a few weeks the arena gave her what the training yard could not. It gave her a place where failing was part of the game instead of proof of her soul. It gave her noise loud enough to drown out the South. It gave her, for the first time since the ship, something that felt dangerously close to joy. And it gave Asami Sato a reason to be in the room. The heiress did not arrive at the ferrets by accident, though the accident she performed for them was a beautiful one. She watched a scrimmage. She asked the right questions. She produced funding the way a magician produces doves, and she produced rather more of it than anyone had asked for, with the surplus designated, she explained, for operating costs or simply for celebrating. The team would carry her company's name on their jackets from now on. They would be her ferrets in the contractual sense. And in the other sense, the sense that matters, she had bought herself a front row seat to the Avatar's life. That was the double ledger again. Every kindness Asami performed in the light had a shadow entry she kept in the dark. Funding the Avatar's team was generosity, and it was also intelligence gathering. It was friendship, and it was also position. She told herself the 2 ledgers balanced. She was becoming very good at telling herself things. What she had not planned for was Korra herself. The Avatar was not what the Equalist briefings described. She was not a pampered idol of the bending establishment. She was a wounded animal who fought like one, loyal beyond reason, blunt beyond etiquette, and so transparent that Asami, who had spent her whole life reading masks, found her almost disorienting. There was nothing to read. What Korra felt was what Korra showed. Asami had built her survival on the assumption that everyone performed. Korra did not perform. And in the presence of someone who did not perform, Asami began, very slowly and very dangerously, to forget to. The city, meanwhile, was putting on its own performance. The gala came in the middle of the season, and the gala was Republic City at full mask. Korra walked into a hall so enormous she had not believed such rooms existed outside stories, and the noise hit her like weather. A wall of voices and glass and music that had nothing in common with the cheering of an arena crowd. Arena noise was honest. This noise was not. This was the sound of several hundred people saying pleasant things while counting each other's advantages. She hated it immediately, which was perhaps why Asami found it so easy to steer her through it. The heiress moved through the gala the way a ship moves through a channel, aware of every shoal, touching none. She introduced Korra to the right people and away from the wrong ones. She translated the city's dialect of smiles. And when Tarlok appeared, all reformer's charm and patient ambition, it was Asami's hand at Korra's elbow that quietly redirected the current, so that the councilman got 3 minutes of the avatar and not the 30 he had budgeted. He noticed. Councilmen always notice, but he smiled as if he hadn't, which told Asami everything she needed to know about him. Her father was there too, at ease among money, discussing the mechs his company was building, the contract with the council, the work being done against the spirit vines that crept through the city like a beautiful rot. When he laughed with the councilman about warranties and progress, Asami smiled along and felt the old familiar split in her chest. The mechs were cutting into the spirit wilds. She knew what Korra would call that. She knew what the spirits called it. She had signed for it anyway, because the ledger said the city needed the land, and because her father's approval was a currency she had never in her life been able to stop spending. It was on a balcony, away from the noise, that the two girls stood for a moment without their masks, or as close to without as either of them could manage. The city glittered below them, indifferent and enormous. Korra said something honest because Korra always did. Asami laughed, and then stopped laughing, and looked at the avatar with an expression she would have been hard-pressed to name, and would have been harder-pressed to hide. It was not yet love. It was the recognition that comes before love, the sudden awareness of a gravity you did not authorize. And it was interrupted, as such moments are ordained to be interrupted, by the arrival of a well-meaning monk with impeccable timing and no instinct for it whatsoever. The moment closed like a door. Both girls stepped back behind their masks, and neither of them afterward could quite remember how to pretend it hadn't happened. While the season rolled toward its championship, Asami kept her other ledger. She hired non-benders at future industries, and she hired many of them, and she made sure the hiring was visible, because it was the best way in the world to not be suspected of harboring Equalist sympathies, and also, though she would have died before saying so aloud, because it was true. She believed the non-bender deserved a fair chance. She had met a man in the ironworks district who lived in a shelter and told her, looking at the ground, that he could work hard, that he would not disappoint her. She had believed him. She had meant it when she said they would reach out. That was the cruelty of Asami's position, and the thing that made her more dangerous than 100 honest revolutionaries. Her charity was real. Her conviction was real. And both of them fed the same machine that was preparing to break the city. Her father noticed her distractions. Fathers do. He applied pressure the way he applied all pressure, gently, reasonably, in the voice of a man who has never been refused. Korra had not joined Tarlok's task force, he observed. The attack on the tournament's finale was coming. The crisis was deepening, and the avatar remained outside the council's machinery. Asami, he said, was the one person Korra trusted. Asami was the one who could convince her. Asami agreed with him out loud. Inwardly, she recorded the entry in the dark ledger and left the column blank. She had not been trying to convince Korra. She was not sure she ever would, and the fact that she could no longer tell whether that hesitation was strategy or sentiment was beginning to frighten her more than any Equalist briefing ever had. Tarlok, for his part, was not a man who waited for sentiment. The councilman built his task force the way beavers build dams, patiently and with total indifference to what got flooded. He wanted the avatar inside his machinery, and he was prepared to purchase her with other people's careers. What he had not accounted for was that Korra, for all her supposed naivete, could negotiate when something she loved was on the table. She did not want his task force. She wanted Lin Bifong, the police chief who had been bled dry holding the city together to keep her badge. So Korra made the councilman an offer in the only dialect she trusted, which was a trade. If he wanted the avatar on his task force, then the chief stayed on the force. Tarlok chuckled, the way men chuckle when they discover an opponent has a price, and the deal was struck, and the city's two most stubborn women were welded together in an alliance neither of them had chosen. The pressure cooker was whistling now. In the streets, the Equalist movement had stopped being a grievance and become a government in shadow. Amon's voice traveled through the city on radio waves and whispered networks, patient and certain, and every week his arithmetic grew harder to refute. In the shadows of the shadows, the other revolution kept its own calendar. The Red Lotus moved like weather across the borders, and their interest in the Avatar was not political. It was theological. Two fires were converging on the same address, and the city was busy arguing about which one was real. And the season, blind to all of it, rolled toward its finale. The championship night arrived with the arena at full roar, the lights white hot, the crowd a single organism of noise. The fire ferrets had made it. Korra stood in the ring with water at her back and her team at her sides, and for one suspended moment she was not the broken avatar, not the South's casualty, not the Council's problem. She was an athlete at the edge of a victory she had earned. Asami watched from the private box with her hands folded and her heart doing something she did not authorize. Mako watched the stands the way he always watched the stands now, counting exits, because a young man who carries everything learns to smell the weight of things. And in the crowd, patient as arithmetic, the masks were already in place. The trap did not announce itself. Traps never do. It waited for the exact moment the city was most certain of its own safety, the moment the roar was loudest and the lights were brightest, and then, with the precision of a ledger being closed, it sprang.